An 11-year-old tells a live court that his mother is worth less because she's broke, and Judge Frank Caprio stops the hearing cold. With $570 in fines on the table and a ringing phone from an absent father, the courtroom turns tense, furious, and deadly quiet. Caprio issues a decision that shocks everyone watching. This case is no longer about tickets, it's about responsibility. When a child learns contempt from adults, should a judge punish the mistake or rewrite the lesson? The hearing is already live when Judge Caprio speaks sharp and unbuffered. What you just said wasn't childish. It was cruel. Leo doesn't look up. His phone glows in his hand. He shrugs and says it plainly without shame. She's always broke. My dad isn't. The words land like broken glass. In one sentence, money becomes worth and worth becomes judgment. No one rushes to contain the damage. The lawyer stays frozen. The mother does not interrupt, does not explain, does not plead. Judge Caprio deliberately says nothing. He allows the silence to stretch to press down on the room until the boy's words stand alone, unsupported and undeniable. This isn't a misunderstanding or a slip of the tongue. It's a belief revealed publicly spoken, without fear, now impossible to retract. Caprio finally leans forward, his tone steady but unforgiving. If money is how you decide who deserves respect, he asks, then tell me, where does responsibility belong? The question slices through the room, because it isn't aimed only at an 11-year-old boy. It challenges every adult present who understands that someone, somewhere taught him to think this way. The defense attorney rises quickly, almost too quickly, as if speed alone can contain the damage. Your Honor, the respondent is 11. He lacks legal capacity, lacks intent, and is clearly influenced by family dynamics beyond his control. He calls it immaturity. He calls it repetition. He calls it harmless. Caprio doesn't wait for a conclusion. His gavel strikes once, sharp, final. Counsel, he says, voice flat and cold intent, does not cancel consequence. Courts don't excuse damage because it arrived wrapped in youth. The attorney freezes. The transcript records the silence. Caprio straightens the file and redraws the battlefield in one sentence. We are done talking about tickets. Heads lift, pens stop. This hearing is about whether a courtroom becomes a place where contempt is tolerated. He explains that fines can be reduced, paperwork corrected, but dignity cannot be reimbursed after it's stripped away. No one here, he adds, has the right to degrade a working parent because of income. His tone hardens, especially not in front of witnesses. The room tightens. This is no longer procedural. This is a line being enforced. Leo shifts in his chair, misreading the moment as attention rather than danger. He doesn't apologize. He smirks. I'm not lying, he says loudly. My dad pays for things. He doesn't end up here. Gasps ripple through the benches. Caprio locks eyes with him. You believe money removes accountability, the judge replies. That belief is now part of this record. Leo leans back, confident, almost amused. He thinks protection is guaranteed. What he doesn't realize, what the room now understands, is that certainty is about to be tested publicly and permanently. Judge Caprio brings the hearing back to the record, anchoring the tension created moments earlier. Let's be precise, he says, signaling the clerk. The citations are read aloud, 3 locations, 3 dates each one, cutting through the room, a hospital curb before sunrise, a downtown meter after a night shift, a residential street beside a pharmacy. Screens display time-stamped photos, the car legally positioned, no obstruction, no danger. This is not chaos or neglect. It is pattern. And the pattern contradicts Leo's claim that irresponsibility defines his mother. Caprio turns to the mother not to rescue her, but to test the truth. She steps forward and accepts fault without qualifiers. No accusations, no excuses, no plea for leniency. She explains the sequence, missed deadlines, work demands, delayed repairs without drama. I made the mistake, she says. The simplicity lands hard after Leo's bravado. Her accountability exposes the contrast, one adult owning consequences, one child dismissing sacrifice. The room senses the shift. What sounded like weakness moments ago now reads as discipline under pressure. Caprio closes the file with deliberate force. This is why we're here, he states, eyes fixed on Leo. Not to excuse violations and not to reward disrespect. He draws the line clearly. The court can reduce fines, restructure penalties, and correct process. What it will not do is validate contempt toward a parent who shows up and answers for her actions. A courtroom does not exist, he says, voice firm, to teach children that humiliation is power. The connection is now undeniable, and the consequences are coming. Judge Caprio doesn't ask Leo to explain himself. He asks him to defend his position. You said your mother is worth less because she's broke. Stand by that statement or retract it. The phrasing is deliberate, no escape through vagueness, no retreat into, I didn't mean it. Leo meets his eyes without flinching. I'm not taking it back, he says, voice steady, almost defiant. It's true. She works all the time and still can't pay fines. My dad has money. He doesn't end up in court. The logic is clean in his mind. Income equals competence, poverty equals failure. He delivers it like reciting math certain of the equation. The courtroom reacts in fractured silence. Someone exhales sharply. The clerk's pen hovers mid-word. Leo's mother stares at the floor, shoulders rigid, breathing controlled. She doesn't defend herself, doesn't interrupt. The humiliation is public recorded, and she absorbs it without protest. Caprio watches her, then turns back to Leo. So labor without wealth is worthless, he states flatly. Not a question, a summary. Leo nods. Pretty much, yeah. The casual agreement is worse than anger. It's conviction without doubt. Caprio leans back, fingers steepled. Your mother works night shifts at the hospital. Correct. Leo shrugs. Yeah, that's why she's always tired. Caprio continues, tone unchanged. She parks illegally because hospital parking fills before her shift starts. She accumulates fines because she chooses work over fighting tickets. Leo interrupts. She accumulates fines because she doesn't manage money. The attorney beside him stiffens, reaching to silence him, but Leo waves him off. What? It's obvious. My dad never has this problem. Caprio's expression doesn't shift, but something hardens behind his eyes. Your father never has this problem, he repeats slowly, because your father pays for your private school, your sports fees, your electronic devices, and then calls himself responsible while your mother handles the daily survival he funds from a distance. Leo's confidence wavers for the first time. He pays for important things, he argues. Caprio's response is immediate, surgical. Define important. Leo hesitates. Things that matter. Education, opportunities. Caprio nods once. Not food, not rent, not the utilities that keep your home functional while you're deciding what matters. The distinction cuts clean. Leo opens his mouth, closes it. No answer comes. Caprio stands, moving to the evidence display. He pulls up the citations again. Hospital curb, downtown meter, Pharmacy Street. Your mother received these violations during work hours, care hours, pharmacy runs for your medication. He looks at Leo. Which of those was irresponsible? Leo stammers. She could have. Caprio cuts him off. Could have what? Quit her job to fight a $15 ticket, abandoned you mid-illness to move the car, chosen parking over presence? Each question lands harder. Leo tries again. My dad would have handled it better. Caprio's voice drops, becomes almost conversational. Let's examine that claim. Your father sends money. Monthly, I assume. Leo nods. Every month. On time. Caprio continues. And where does that money come from? Leo frowns. His job. He's a manager. Caprio nods. A manager who works business hours, I imagine. 9 to 5. Weekends off. Leo nods again, uncertain where this leads. So he earns predictable income during standard hours, then transfers a portion to your mother who works graveyard shifts, handles your daily needs, and manages household emergencies with whatever remains after his contribution covers the basics he's legally obligated to provide. The courtroom goes still. Caprio isn't raising his voice. He's dismantling logic piece by piece. Tell me, Leo, does your father attend parent-teacher conferences? Pause. Does he know your teacher's name? Longer pause. When you were sick last month, who took you to the doctor? Leo's face flushes. Mom did, but Caprio interrupts. And when you needed forms signed for school, who signed them? Leo's voice drops. Mom, Caprio presses. When your phone broke the one your father bought, who spent 3 hours at the store getting it repaired? Silence. When you forgot your science project at home, who drove it to school during her only break? Leo won't answer. Caprio steps closer. Your father provides gifts. Your mother provides presents. You've confused the first with responsibility and dismissed the second as failure. He pauses, letting it settle. That confusion, that equation where money equals worth and labor equals weakness, who taught you that? Leo's defiance cracks. Nobody taught me. I just see. Caprio cuts through. You see what you've been conditioned to value, and someone did the conditioning. Caprio returns to the bench, pulling up a document, state child support guidelines. Your father's obligation, he reads, is calculated based on income and custody arrangement. The amount he pays isn't generosity. It's compliance with court order. He looks at Leo. Everything he gives you, that's what the law requires him to give. Your mother receives no such mandate. Every hour she works beyond survival, every sacrifice she makes beyond obligation, that's choice. He taps the screen. Your father funds from a distance. Your mother builds your life in proximity, and you've mistaken the first for virtue while dismissing the second as incompetence. Leo's voice is barely audible. But he has more. Caprio doesn't let him finish. More money, yes. Does he have more responsibility? More presence? More midnight fevers managed, more homework supervised, more loneliness absorbed when you're angry and need someone to blame? Each question strips away another layer. Leo's hands are shaking now. The smirk is gone. What remains is a child realizing his certainty was borrowed, not earned. Caprio leans forward, voice quiet but absolute. If money were sufficient to make a parent, this courtroom wouldn't exist. We wouldn't need custody hearings, neglect investigations, or child welfare laws. He pauses. Money pays for things. Parenting pays for presence. Your father does the first. Your mother does both on a third of his income and triple his hours. The math is undeniable. So when you claim she's worth less, what you're actually saying is that sacrifice without reward has no value. That struggle without escape deserves contempt. He straightens. That belief is now documented in this hearing, and it will follow you until you confront where it came from. Leo's face crumbles. Not tears. Something worse, recognition. The certainty he carried into this courtroom has been dismantled publicly and permanently, and the person who taught him to equate money with worth isn't here to defend the lesson or absorb the consequence. Leo is alone with his statement, and the record won't let him forget it. Leo's phone erupts mid-silence. Not a vibration. A full ringtone, loud, cutting through the chamber like a violation. Every head turns. Leo's hand moves toward his pocket. Caprio's voice cracks across the room. Touch that device and you're in contempt. Leo freezes. The ringing continues, insistent, demanding, impossible to ignore. He stares at the screen glowing through his pocket. It's my dad, he says, voice tight. Caprio doesn't blink. I don't care if it's the president. Silence it immediately. Leo doesn't silence it. He answers. Pulls the phone out. Swipes, lifts it to his ear. Dad. The word is barely a whisper, but the microphones catch it. The courtroom detonates. Gasps. Angry mutters. The bailiff steps forward. Caprio raises one hand, stopping him cold. He wants to witness exactly how far this defiance extends. A voice bleeds through the speaker, male, sharp executive. Not speakerphone, but loud enough to carry. What the hell is going on? Why is this still happening? Leo tries to answer. His father cuts him off. Put him on, now. Leo extends the phone toward the bench, arm shaking. The presumption is breathtaking that a phone call overrides judicial authority, that distance grants power, that fatherhood excuses interruption. Caprio doesn't take the phone. His voice is ice. Bailiff, speaker. Now. The device is placed on the evidence table. The father's voice fills every corner of the room. Judge Caprio, Daniel Morrison, Leo's father, I'm watching this circus on live stream, and I'm calling to end it. Caprio leans forward, both hands flat on the bench. Mr. Morrison, you are disrupting active court proceedings. State your purpose or disconnect immediately. Morrison doesn't hesitate. My purpose is protecting my son from being humiliated on national television Over parking tickets I can pay right now. Send me the bill. This ends. The offer is delivered like power money as solution payment as erasure. Caprio's response is surgical. This hearing is not a negotiation. Your son's recorded statements are not for sale. You have 5 seconds to disconnect before I hold you in contempt. Morrison's voice hardens, contempt bleeding through. With respect, Judge, you're grandstanding. Those tickets belong to my ex-wife. She racked them up. She should answer for them. Maybe if she managed her life better, instead of playing victim, we wouldn't be here. The insult lands like a physical blow. The mother flinches but doesn't speak. Morrison continues, voice dripping condescension. Leave my kid out of your crusade against single mothers who can't handle basic adulting. Adulting. The word is acid. Motherhood reduced to punchline. Sacrifice reduced to failure. And it's delivered into a live courtroom, recorded irreversible. Caprio's expression doesn't change, but the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Mr. Morrison, you just made claims that require correction. Immediate correction. He signals the clerk. Documents flood the screen, citations, timestamps, vehicle registration. You claim these violations are solely your ex-wife's responsibility. Factually incorrect. Your son drove the vehicle on citations 2 and 3, 11 years old, unlicensed, using keys accessed at your residence during your custody weekends. The words land like verdict. Morrison's voice stutters. That's not, he wouldn't. Caprio doesn't wait for excuses. Citation 2, Saturday 7:47 a.m. School zone 15 over the limit. Citation 3, Sunday 10:15 p.m. Convenience store, double parked in a fire lane. He looks toward the phone. Both incidents occurred during your custodial time. Where were you, Mr. Morrison, when your 11-year-old son was operating a motor vehicle illegally? Silence. 3 seconds. 5. Morrison's voice returns, defensive, scrambling. I was working. I have a business to run. I can't watch him every second. Caprio's interruption is brutal, but you can criticize his mother for working night shifts that create parking problems. You demand she supervise perfectly while you admit you don't supervise at all. Morrison tries to recover. That's completely different. I provide financial stability. Caprio's gavel strikes, once, hard. The sound silences everything. Financial obligation is not parenting. It's compliance with court-ordered support. You do not get credit for meeting legal minimums. Morrison shifts tactics, voice sharpening into legal territory. I'm his father. I have parental rights over his communications, his property, his legal representation. That phone belongs to me. I purchased it. I pay the monthly service. You have zero authority to restrict my contact with my son or seize property I own. The argument is clean, rehearsed, probably attorney scripted. Caprio's response is immediate. You confused ownership with immunity. When your son brings that device into my courtroom and uses it to disrupt sworn testimony, it becomes subject to judicial authority regardless of whose name is on the bill. Morrison's voice rises, aggressive now. Case law clearly establishes parental rights supersede. The gavel strikes again, harder. Case law also establishes contempt of court interference with judicial proceedings and contributing to minor delinquency. Your son committed moving violations under your supervision. You are currently arguing property law to avoid discussing supervisory failure. Caprio leans into the microphone. Choose your next sentence carefully, Mr. Morrison. Everything you say is being transcribed into permanent record. The line goes dead silent. When Morrison speaks again, the aggression is wrapped in forced composure. Judge, I think we've gotten off track. My point is simple, that boy respects me because I maintain boundaries and standards. His mother's financial situation prevents her from enforcing. Confiscating the phone I gave him undermines the parental structure I've built. The phrasing is calculated parental authority, structural discipline, consistent standards. It sounds reasonable until examined. Caprio stands. The movement is deliberate, commanding. You want to discuss structure? Let's discuss it. His voice fills the chamber. Your son told this court his mother is worthless because she's broke. He equated poverty with failure. He dismissed her labor as incompetence. He learned that value system somewhere, Mr. Morrison. And you just spent 7 minutes demonstrating exactly where. Morrison tries to interrupt. Caprio's voice overrides him. You claimed parking tickets are beneath your concern, then called mid-hearing to assert control. You criticized your ex-wife's management while admitting you don't supervise your son during custody. You demanded I respect your property rights while your son sat here disrespecting the parent who raises him daily. Morrison's voice cracks with anger. I never taught him to disrespect his mother. Caprio cuts through relentless. You taught him that money grants authority, that physical distance doesn't diminish control, that ownership equals power. You taught him so thoroughly that he answered your call mid-testimony because he believed your voice supersedes my courtroom. The indictment is complete, public recorded. Morrison tries again. You can't just, Caprio gestures to the bailiff. Confiscate the device. Evidence Exhibit C instrument of courtroom disruption. The bailiff moves. Leo's hands grip the phone desperately. No, you can't. My dad owns... Caprio's voice is absolute. Your father owns the hardware. He does not own immunity from consequence. The phone is pulled from Leo's hands. He lunges for it. The bailiff blocks him. Morrison's voice erupts from the speaker in the final second before confiscation. This is illegal seizure. I'm contacting my attorney immediately. Caprio's response is final. Contact anyone you choose. Do it outside my courtroom. Bailiff, terminate the call. The line goes dead. The phone disappears into evidence. Leo sits frozen, stripped of his device, his father's voice, his assumed protection. Caprio returns to the bench, voice cold and clear. No one father, attorney, or spectator uses parental status to fracture judicial order. Not through money, not through property, not through phone calls delivered like commands. He looks directly at Leo. Your father just taught you about limits. This court is now teaching you about consequences. The phone is gone. The father's voice silenced. The courtroom holds its breath. Judge Caprio pulls the case file toward him, opens it with deliberate precision. We will now address the citations that brought us here. His voice shifts, no longer confrontational but judicial. Official, final. He looks at the mother. Ms. Morrison approached the bench. She stands movements, careful, controlled. Years of humiliation haven't broken her posture. She walks forward and waits. Caprio reads from the file. Citation 1, hospital employee parking zone, 6:23 a.m. Expired meter. Citation 2, downtown commercial district, 11:47 p.m. Overtime violation. Citation 3, residential pharmacy loading zone, 3:15 p.m. Unauthorized parking. He sets down the paper. Total fines $570. Late fees and administrative costs included. He pauses, letting the number sit in the silence. Then he continues. The court has reviewed the circumstances, employment verified, shift schedules confirmed, financial hardship documented. Another pause. These violations occurred during the execution of parental and professional responsibilities under constrained economic conditions. He picks up a pen, strikes through numbers on the official form. The sound of ink on paper amplifies through the microphones. Citation 1 reduced to $25 payable over 6 months. Citation 2 dismissed with prejudice. Vehicle access during this incident has been attributed to unauthorized minor operation. Citation 3 reduced to $15 payment plan authorized. He looks up. Total adjusted obligation $40. First payment due in 30 days. Does the respondent accept these terms? The mother's voice is barely audible. Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Caprio's expression doesn't soften. Don't thank me. This isn't charity. It's correction of disproportionate penalty applied to documented circumstances. He signs the order, stamps it. You are responsible for $40 in fines resulting from violations committed while maintaining employment and family care under financial constraints your ex-husband's support payments clearly don't adequately address. The distinction is surgical. He's not excusing the violations, he's contextualizing them against the economic reality her ex-husband just mocked on speakerphone. The gallery reacts, murmurs of approval, scattered applause, quickly silenced by the bailiff. Caprio continues. The court notes for the record that 2 of 3 citations occurred during periods when your son was operating the vehicle without license, without permission, and without supervision during his father's custodial time. He pulls up the timestamps again. Those violations are being transferred to a separate juvenile matter. He looks toward Leo. which brings us to the second set of consequences. The mother starts to return to her seat. Caprio stops her. Remain at the bench. You need to hear what comes next. She freezes mid-step, turns back. Confusion crosses her face. The judge gestures to the bailiff. Bring the respondent forward. Leo is escorted to stand beside his mother. He won't look at her, won't look at Caprio. His eyes fix on the floor, shoulders hunch, the bravado from 20 minutes ago completely evaporated. Caprio waits until the room settles into absolute silence before speaking. Caprio addresses Leo directly, voice stripped of the earlier anger, but losing none of its authority. Leo Morrison, you are not charged with a crime. Understand that first. Leo's head lifts slightly. Hope flickers across his face. Caprio extinguishes it immediately. You are, however, responsible for consequences stemming from your actions and statements made under oath in this courtroom. The hope dies. Fear replaces it. Caprio continues, methodical and precise. You operated a motor vehicle on 2 separate occasions without a license, without insurance, without legal authority. Those violations occurred during your father's custody. The court is forwarding documentation to family court for review of custodial supervision standards. Leo's face goes white. You're also subject to mandatory traffic safety education, 40 hours to be completed within 90 days. Proof of completion required, or your father's custodial weekends will be supervised at his expense until compliance is verified. The attorney starts to object. Caprio's hand rises, silencing him. Counsel, your client is not being punished. He's being educated. There's a distinction. He turns back to Leo. Additionally, you disrupted these proceedings by answering a phone call mid-testimony. The device has been confiscated as evidence of contempt. It will be returned to your father, not to you, in 30 days, provided you complete the first 10 hours of traffic education and submit a written statement to this court explaining the difference between legal obligation and parental presence. Leo's voice cracks. A written statement about what? Caprio's response is immediate. About why your mother's $40 in parking fines during work shifts is not evidence of her failure, and why your father's $800 phone purchased from 300 miles away is not evidence of his success. The courtroom goes still. The assignment is not academic, it's confrontational. It forces Leo to defend or renounce what he said under oath. Caprio isn't finished. That statement will be submitted to me, copied to both your parents, and entered into your juvenile record. It will be reviewed during any future custody modification hearings. You will write it yourself, no parental assistance, no attorney revision. Your words, your reasoning, your accountability. Leo's hands are shaking now. And if I don't, the question is barely audible. Caprio's answer is absolute. Then your father's phone stays in evidence indefinitely, your traffic education extends to 80 hours, and I schedule a follow-up hearing where we discuss why an 11-year-old believes courtroom orders are optional. The mother's intake of breath is sharp. She didn't expect this. Nobody expected this. Caprio continues, relentless. You told this court your mother is worth less because she's broke. That statement is now part of permanent record. You can leave it unchallenged, or you can write an explanation that demonstrates you understand why that statement was not just cruel, it was factually, morally, and legally wrong. He pauses. The court is giving you an opportunity to correct the record you created. I suggest you take it seriously. Caprio leans back, both hands visible on the bench, voice shifting from judicial command to something closer to still authoritative, but explaining rather than sentencing. This courtroom sees hundreds of cases every month. Traffic violations, parking disputes, small claims. Most of them are resolved with fines, payment plans, dismissals. He gestures broadly to the chamber. But every so often a case arrives that isn't really about the citation. It's about something deeper, something that won't be fixed by reducing a fine or waiving a fee. He looks directly at Leo, then at the mother, then at the cameras. Today's hearing started with $570 in parking tickets. It became about respect, responsibility, and the stories we tell ourselves about worth. He taps the file. Your mother accumulated these violations while working to support you. Your father called them evidence of incompetence. You repeated that assessment under oath on record in front of witnesses. He pauses, letting the summary settle. This court cannot undo what was said. It can only create consequences that force examination of why it was said. Caprio pulls up the transcript on the monitors, Leo's words timestamped, preserved. You said she's always broke. My dad isn't. You said she's worth less. You said it without hesitation, without shame, without recognition, that you were describing the person who raises you as inferior based solely on income. He scrolls through more quotes. Those statements reveal a belief system. They expose values you've absorbed, probably not invented, but certainly internalized. He looks at Leo. The question this court must answer is not whether to punish you for those beliefs. The question is whether to let you carry them unchallenged into adulthood. He closes the transcript, turns back to the courtroom. The assignment I've given Leo is not punitive, it's corrective. He will research the difference between financial contribution and parental presence. He will examine his own statements against factual evidence. He will submit a written analysis explaining whether he stands by his assessment or rejects it. Caprio's voice hardened slightly. And he will do so knowing that his answer becomes part of his permanent record, accessible during future custody, reviews, college applications, employment background checks. The weight of that consequence settles across the room like fog. Leo's face is ashen. The mother's eyes are wet, but she doesn't cry. Caprio continues. This court does not fix parking tickets. It adjudicates violations and assigns proportional consequences. He gestures to the reduced fines. But when a case reveals systematic contempt taught to a child and aimed at a working parent, this court also intervenes to interrupt that pattern. He looks directly into the main camera. Because contempt unchallenged becomes contempt inherited, and contempt inherited becomes contempt perpetuated across generations. He stands gathering his papers. Ms. Morrison, your fines are reduced as stated. Payment schedule begins in 30 days. Leo Morrison, your requirements are documented and binding. Compliance review is scheduled for 90 days from today. Failure to comply results in extended supervision and additional hearings. He picks up the gavel, pauses. This court is adjourned. The gavel strikes, once, final. The hearing is over, but the consequences are just beginning. The gavel strike echoes. Leo starts to turn toward the exit. Caprio's voice stops him cold. Where do you think you're going? Leo freezes mid-step. You said the hearing's over. Caprio's expression doesn't shift. I said adjourned, not dismissed. Sit down. Leo looks to his attorney. The attorney nods reluctantly. Leo sits, confusion spreading across his face. The bailiff closes the courtroom doors. No one is leaving. Caprio pulls a new document from the file, financial records highlighted and tabbed. Before you leave this courtroom, we're going to establish some facts. Not for the transcript. For you. He looks directly at Leo. You told me your father has money and your mother doesn't. Let's examine that claim with actual numbers. He turns the monitor toward Leo. This is your father's court-ordered child support obligation. Monthly amount $1,240. Agreed. Leo nods slowly, uncertain where this leads. That money covers what exactly? Leo stammers. I don't know. Stuff. Bills. Caprio's response is immediate. Wrong. You don't know because you've never had to know. Let me educate you. He pulls up a spreadsheet. Rent for your 2-bedroom apartment, $100 monthly. Utilities, $180. Internet you use for gaming, $75. Health insurance your mother maintains, $320. School fees and supplies, $150. Food, $400 minimum. He scrolls. That's $225 in basic monthly expenses. Your father contributes $1,240. Who covers the remaining $985? The math is brutal, undeniable. Leo's face flushes. Maybe she... Caprio doesn't let him finish. Your mother works 52 hours weekly at the hospital. Her take-home income after taxes, $2,190 monthly. Subtract the $985 gap your father's support doesn't cover. What remains for everything else, car payment, insurance, gas, clothing, emergency medical school trips. Birthday presents, he pauses. Roughly $1,900 for a household of 2. That's $950 per person monthly. Your father's monthly income. He clicks to another document. Business tax returns show $8,300 monthly take-home for a household of 1. Leo's voice is small. He has expenses too. Caprio's interruption is swift. Correct. His mortgage, $1,800. His car payment, $520. His expenses are higher because his lifestyle is more expensive. By choice. He leans forward. But here's the question that matters when you needed new soccer cleats last month. $140, who paid for them? Leo doesn't answer. Who paid Leo? The judge's voice sharpens. Leo whispers, Mom did. Caprio nods. And when your school required a laptop for virtual classes, $680, who handled that? Silence. Caprio answers for him. Your mother. Over 4 months of payments she arranged with the school because she couldn't afford it up front. He pulls up payment receipts. Your father bought you a $900 phone, a gift, optional, not required for survival or education. Your mother bought you a laptop, a necessity, required for school. One is generosity, one is obligation. Can you identify which is which? Leo's jaw tightens. He doesn't respond. Caprio presses harder. When you eat dinner every night, who buys the groceries? When the power stays on so you can charge that phone your father bought, who pays the electric bill? When you wore a winter coat last year, who purchased it? Each question strips away another layer. Leo's hands grip the table edge. She does, but Caprio cuts through. But what? But your father has more money. Yes, he does, because he supports one person himself. Your mother supports two, you and herself, on a third of his income. And somehow you decided the person stretched thinner is the one worth less. Caprio isn't finished. He pulls up another document, bank records, payment history. Let's discuss your father's consistency. The screen fills with transaction dates. Court-ordered support is due on the 1st of each month. Correct? Leo nods. Let's review the last 12 months. He highlights entries. January paid on the 17th. February paid on the 9th. March paid on the 22nd. April paid on the 14th. He scrolls through the entire year. Only 3 payments arrived on time. The rest were between 9 and 23 days late. Leo's attorney starts to object. Caprio's hand rises. The support order allows for 5-day grace period. Anything beyond that constitutes late payment subject to penalties your father has never paid. He turns to Leo. Do you know what happens when rent is 23 days late? Leo shakes his head. Caprio tells him, eviction proceedings begin. Late fees accumulate. Credit scores drop. Your mother has been threatened with eviction 4 times in 2 years because your father's reliable support arrives unreliably. The revelation detonates quietly. Leo's face drains. I didn't know. Caprio's response is merciless. You didn't know because your mother shielded you from it. She absorbed the stress negotiated with landlords, juggled bills, and never told you that the father you praise for financial stability is chronically late with the one payment he's legally obligated to make. He pulls up another record. Last June, his payment was 21 days late. You remember June? Leo nods slowly. That's when we went to the amusement park. Dad paid for everything. Caprio's expression hardens. He spent $340 on a single day's entertainment, while his support payment, due June 1st, didn't arrive until June 22nd. He had money for roller coasters, but not for rent. The contrast is devastating. During those 21 days, your mother took an extra shift, borrowed $200 from her sister, and fed you pasta 4 nights in a row to make the grocery budget stretch. But you remember the amusement park. You don't remember the pasta. Leo's voice cracks. He didn't tell me, Caprio interrupts. He didn't tell you because telling you would interfere with your perception of him as the successful parent. It's easier to buy your admiration with $900 phones than to explain why his court-ordered obligation arrives late while he posts vacation photos on social media. He clicks to Facebook screenshots the father's public posts. June 15th photo at an expensive restaurant. June 18th new golf clubs. June 20th weekend trip to Boston, all posted before the support payment cleared. Your father's financial priorities, Caprio states flatly, are himself first, his lifestyle second, and his legal obligations third. Your mother's priorities are your survival first, your needs second, and her own existence last. He closes the financial records. You called her worthless because she's broke. The truth is she's broke because she prioritizes you. Your father has money because he prioritizes himself. Those are not equivalent moral positions. Leo sits without his phone, without his father's voice, without the protective certainty he carried into this courtroom. His hands are empty, his arguments dismantled. For the first time, he looks small, not defiant, not confident, just an 11-year-old boy forced to confront math he can't refute. Caprio watches the deflation with something that isn't quite sympathy, but isn't cruelty either. It's the expression of someone who knows this moment is necessary, regardless of how uncomfortable it becomes. Leo Caprio begins voice softer, but no less firm. I'm going to ask you a question. Think before you answer. He pauses, ensuring full attention. If your father has so much money and is so responsible, why doesn't he have custody of you? The question hangs in the air like a trap. Leo opens his mouth, closes it, tries again. He works a lot. He has a demanding job. Caprio shakes his head. Wrong answer. Try again. Why doesn't the financially stable, consistently employed, resource-abundant parent have primary custody? Leo's voice is barely audible. He said it wasn't practical. Caprio presses. Practical for whom? For you or for him? Leo doesn't answer. Caprio provides it. Your father chose career over custody. That's his right. But having made that choice, he doesn't get to criticize the parent who chose differently. Your mother works 52 hours weekly and still maintains primary custody. Your father works 40 and sees you 4 days a month. One of those parents sacrificed career advancement for proximity to you. It wasn't your father. The attorney tries to intervene. Your Honor, this is beyond the scope. Caprio's gavel strikes. Once. The scope is this child's understanding of worth, effort, and accountability. We're well within it. He turns back to Leo. You told this court your mother is worth less. Based on what metric? Income? Your father makes more because he chose profession over parenting. Free time. He has more because he doesn't handle daily childcare. Stress. He has less because your mother absorbs it. So explain to me, using facts, not feelings, how any of that makes her worth less. Leo's face crumples. Not tears yet, but close. I don't know what to say. Caprio's response is quiet but absolute. Then say nothing. Listen instead. He gestures to the mother standing silently beside her son. Your mother has stood in this courtroom for 40 minutes being insulted by you, dismissed by your father, and humiliated publicly. She hasn't defended herself once. She hasn't blamed anyone. She hasn't made excuses. She accepted responsibility for $40 in parking fines and said thank you when I reduced penalties she accumulated while working to keep you housed and fed. He leans forward, both hands on the bench. That what you just witnessed is dignity under pressure. It's accountability without deflection. It's strength that doesn't require an audience or a phone call from 3 states away. He pauses, letting the words settle. Your father called this courtroom to assert control. Your mother stood here silently accepting consequence. One of those responses demonstrates actual integrity. And it wasn't the one that came through a speakerphone. Leo stares at the table. His mother's hand moves slightly as if to touch his shoulder, then stops. The distance between them, 12 inches physically, miles emotionally, is the result of lessons taught and absorbed over years. Caprio sees it clearly. You have 90 days to write that statement, Leo. 90 days to decide whether you're going to defend what you said or demonstrate you're capable of growth. His voice drops. Choose carefully, because the record you create today follows you tomorrow. And character isn't built in courtrooms. It's revealed here. Caprio stands, moves from behind the bench. The action is unusual enough that the entire courtroom tenses. He walks to where Leo and his mother stand, separated by 18 inches in an ocean of unspoken damage. He stops directly between them. Leo, look at your mother. Leo's eyes stay fixed on the floor. I said, look at her. The command is not loud, but it's absolute. Leo's head lifts slowly, reluctantly. His eyes meet his mother's for the first time since the hearing began. She's not crying. Her face is composed, careful, the expression of someone who's learned that showing pain invites more of it. Caprio's voice is quiet now, stripped of judicial formality. Describe what you see. Leo's face contorts with confusion. What? Caprio repeats, patient but unyielding. Describe your mother. What do you see when you look at her? Leo stammers. What am I supposed to? Caprio doesn't rescue him. You told this court she's worth less. You made that assessment confidently. So describe the person you evaluated. What do you see? Leo's voice is barely audible. I see my mom. Caprio shakes his head. Insufficient. Details. What is she wearing? Leo glances down at her clothes, then away quickly. Work scrubs, blue. Caprio continues. Those scrubs are hospital issued. She came here directly from a night shift that ended at 6:00 a.m. This hearing started at 9:00 a.m. How many hours has she been awake? Leo's math is slow, reluctant. 17, maybe more. Caprio nods. 17 hours minimum. Working 10 of those. Standing here for 2 more, being insulted by her son and dismissed by her ex-husband. What else do you see? Leo forces himself to look again. His mother's face is lined with exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a functional ponytail. No styling, no makeup. Hands that are dry and cracked from constant sanitizer use. Wedding ring gone, but the indentation still visible. She looks exactly like what she is, a woman who works too hard for too little and has no energy left for vanity. Leo's voice cracks. She looks tired. Caprio's response is immediate. She looks exhausted. Because she is. She worked a full shift, drove here, stood through this hearing, and has to work another shift tonight because she can't afford to miss hours. He steps closer to Leo. Now describe your father, not what he owns, what you see when you look at him. Leo's confusion deepens. He's not here. Caprio's voice hardens. Exactly, he's not here. He called from an office 300 miles away, interrupted legal proceedings, insulted your mother publicly, and hung up when told to stop. So when you look at the parent who showed up versus the parent who phoned in, tell me again who's worth more. Caprio moves back to the bench but doesn't sit. He pulls up 2 images side by side on the courtroom monitors. On the left, a screenshot from Daniel Morrison's Facebook posted 6 days ago, showing him at a steakhouse wine glass, raised caption reading, "Success tastes better when you've earned it." On the right, a timestamp from hospital security footage showing Leo's mother entering the building at 9:47 p.m., leaving at 7:14 a.m., returning at 10:23 p.m., the same day, a double shift. The visual contrast is devastating. Your father posts about success, Caprio states flatly. Your mother works consecutive shifts without posting anything because she doesn't have time for social media. He zooms in on the timestamps. June 3rd, your father at dinner, $240 receipt according to the credit card statement he submitted for tax deduction. Same date, your mother worked 18 straight hours because a coworker called in sick and the hospital was understaffed. He switches to another image pair. July 12th, your father's new golf clubs, $680. Same week, your mother's car failed inspection, $340 repair. She put on a credit card she's still paying off. Leo stares at the screens, face pale. Caprio continues relentlessly. August 9th, your father took a client to a Red Sox game, $450 in tickets and parking. That same day, your mother worked a double shift to cover rent because your father's support payment was 19 days late. He closes the images. Those aren't outliers. That's pattern. Your father spends money on experiences that enhance his image. Your mother spends money on necessities that keep you alive. One photographs well, one doesn't, but only one is actual sacrifice. Caprio's tone shifts, becomes almost clinical. Let's discuss presence, physical presence. Not phone calls or weekend visits, daily mundane, unglamorous presence. He pulls up a school attendance record. Last academic year, parent-teacher conferences, 3 scheduled. Your mother attended all 3. Your father attended 0. School plays, 2 events. Your mother attended both, took photos, brought flowers. Your father sent a text saying, "Great job," based on a video your mother recorded and sent him. He scrolls through more records. Doctor appointments, 8 required visits. Your mother took you to all 8 missing work for 5 of them. Your father was informed of the appointments via email. He responded to 2. Leo's hands are shaking. Caprio doesn't stop. Emergency room visit last November when you broke your wrist during gym class, who arrived within 20 minutes. Leo whispers, "Mom did." Caprio nods. Your mother left work mid-shift, drove 15 minutes over the speed limit, and stayed with you for 4 hours in the ER. Your father was notified. He texted asking for updates and said he'd call after his meeting. He pauses. He called 3 hours later. After your wrist was already casted. After your mother had already handled the medical decisions, the insurance paperwork, the prescription pickup, and the drive home. Caprio leans forward. So when you told this court your father is worth more, what metric were you using? Money spent on luxuries or presents during emergencies? Gifts purchased for birthdays? Or nights stayed awake when you had fever? Social media posts about success? Or silent sacrifices that don't photograph well? Each question lands like a verdict. Your father invests in image. Your mother invests in you. Those are not the same thing. The courtroom is silent except for the air conditioning hum and someone's muffled cough. Caprio walks back to stand directly in front of Leo. I'm going to ask you one final question before this hearing concludes. He waits until Leo's eyes meet his. Knowing what you know now, the late payments, the double shifts, the emergency room visits, the math, showing your mother covers $980 monthly, that your father's support doesn't, do you still believe your mother is worth less because she's broke? Leo's face crumples. Not dramatically. It's a slow collapsed jaw, trembling eyes, reddening shoulders, curling inward. When he speaks, his voice is thick and broken. I don't know. Not a refusal to answer. An honest confession of confusion. I don't know what I'm supposed to think anymore. Caprio doesn't comfort him. You're supposed to think critically. You claimed your mother's poverty indicated her worthlessness. The evidence shows her poverty indicates her sacrifice. Those facts now exist in your mind simultaneously. Reconcile them. Leo's voice cracks. I didn't mean I didn't know all that stuff about the payments being late, and Caprio cuts him off. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You accepted your father's narrative without questioning whether it was accurate. That's not childish ignorance. That's chosen blindness. He pauses. Your father told you a story about success and failure. Your mother lived a reality you didn't bother to examine. And when forced to choose between comfortable fiction and uncomfortable fact, you chose fiction. Until today. Leo wipes his face with his sleeve. What am I supposed to do now? The question isn't rhetorical, it's desperate. Caprio's response is firm. You write the statement I assigned. You examine why you believed what you believed. You decide whether evidence changes your position or whether you're committed to defending contempt regardless of facts. He steps back. But understand this, you don't get to claim ignorance anymore. You now know the late payments exist. You now know the double shifts happen. You now know the financial math doesn't support your father's superiority narrative. That knowledge is permanent. What you do with it determines whether you're capable of growth or committed to comfortable delusion. Leo nods slowly, mechanically. It's not acceptance. It's overwhelm. The certainty he carried into this courtroom has been systematically dismantled. What remains is confusion, shame, and the beginning of something that might eventually become understanding. His mother stands beside him, still silent, still composed, absorbing her son's crisis without trying to fix it. The gap between them hasn't closed, but for the first time, Leo seems aware the gap exists and aware that he helped create it. Caprio returns to the bench, sits, pulls the case file toward him. The motion signals conclusion. The hearing is winding down. He picks up his pen, prepares to sign the final order. Then he stops, sets the pen down, looks at Leo. Before I close this record, I'm giving you one opportunity. His voice is different now, not confrontational, not educational, but offering something rare, a chance to correct the permanent record being created. You made statements under oath earlier. Those statements are now documented, but this hearing is still open. You can add to the record if you choose. Leo looks up, confusion and fear mixing on his face. Add what? Caprio's response is direct. The truth, or continued defense of what you said. Your choice. But choose carefully. Once I sign this order, the record closes. What exists in it becomes permanent. He gestures to the stenographer, whose fingers are poised over the keys. Everything you say from this moment forward is transcribed, time-stamped, and filed. It will be accessible during custody reviews, school disciplinary hearings, future court proceedings. This is your moment to decide what you want that record to contain. The weight of permanence settles over the courtroom. Leo's attorney leans close, whispers urgently. Leo shakes his head, pushes the attorney's hand away gently. He stands without being asked, walks to the microphone at the witness table. His movements are slow, deliberate. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, but the microphones catch every word. I want to say something, for the record. Caprio nods once. Proceed. The stenographer's keys begin clicking, capturing what comes next for permanent preservation. Leo takes a shaky breath. I said my mom was worth less because she's broke. He pauses. I said my dad was better because he has money. Another pause longer this time. I was wrong. The admission is simple, unadorned. No justification, no explanation, just acknowledgement. But he doesn't stop there. I didn't know, he catches himself. No, that's not true. I didn't want to know. It was easier to believe what I was told instead of looking at what was real. Leo's hands grip the edge of the table. My mom works all the time. I complained about it. I said she was never home, always tired, never had time for stuff I wanted to do. His voice cracks. I didn't know she was working double shifts because my dad's payments came late. I didn't know she was choosing extra hours so I could have things he said he'd pay for but didn't. He looks toward his mother for the first time voluntarily. She's crying now, silent tears tracking down her face, but her expression hasn't changed, still composed, still controlled. I have a laptop for school, Leo continues. I thought Mom just bought it. I didn't know she made payments for 4 months because she couldn't afford it all at once. He swallows hard. My dad bought me a phone in 1 day, and I thought that made him better. But the laptop kept me in school. The phone is just... He stops searching for words. It's just a thing, and it's gone now anyway. The reference to the confiscated device carries no anger, just recognition. Caprio watches without interrupting. This isn't prompted testimony. This is a child working through cognitive dissonance in real time on record under oath. Leo continues, voice steadier now. Judge Caprio showed me the numbers. My dad makes more money but pays less of what I actually need. My mom makes less but covers more. He pauses. That's not opinion. That's math. And I chose to ignore math because believing my dad was better made me feel better. He straightens slightly. I said my mom was worthless. That's... His voice breaks completely. He stops, breathes, forces himself to continue. That's the worst thing I've ever said. And I said it in front of cameras and witnesses, and I can't take it back. The tears come now, not dramatic, but real. She's not worthless. She's the only reason I have anything. And I'm... He stops again, struggling. Caprio's voice is quiet. Finish the statement, Leo. Leo nods. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said it. I'm sorry I believed it. And I'm sorry it took a judge showing me bank statements to figure it out. Caprio turns to the mother. Ms. Morrison, your son has just offered testimony contradicting his earlier statements. Do you wish to respond for the record? She shakes her head. No, Your Honor. Her voice is soft but steady. He's 11. He said what he was taught to believe. That's not his fault. Caprio's eyebrow raises. You're excusing him. She meets his eyes directly. I'm contextualizing. There's a difference. The distinction is sharp, precise. She's not absolving Leo, she's identifying the source. Caprio nods slowly, understanding. He turns back to Leo. Your statement is now part of permanent record. The court acknowledges your admission and notes the contrast between your initial testimony and current statement. He picks up his pen, begins writing. However, acknowledgement of error is not erasure of consequence. You still face the requirements I outlined earlier. Traffic education, written analysis, compliance review in 90 days. Leo nods. I understand. Caprio continues writing. Your father's custodial arrangements remain under review, pending his response to the late payment documentation and supervisory failures identified during this hearing. He signs the order with deliberate strokes, stamps it, hands it to the clerk. This case is now closed. Miss Morrison, your fine is reduced to $40 payable over 6 months as stated. First payment due 30 days from today. He looks at her. The court notes for permanent record that you appeared accepted responsibility and maintained dignity, despite personal attacks from both your ex-husband and your son. That conduct is documented and will be referenced if future custody disputes arise. The mother's face doesn't change, but something shifts in her posture. Not relief exactly, but validation. Someone in authority witnessed what happened. Someone documented it. Someone stated officially that she showed up, endured abuse, and behaved with integrity. In a system that often ignores quiet sacrifice while rewarding loud entitlement, that documentation matters. Caprio closes the file. This hearing is concluded. Court is adjourned. The gavel strikes. Once, final. The cameras continue recording as Leo and his mother stand side by side, the gap between them slightly smaller than when they entered. Not reconciled, not repaired, but acknowledged. An acknowledgement documented in permanent record is where change begins. The gavel has struck. The order is signed. Legally, procedurally, the hearing is over. But Caprio doesn't stand, doesn't gather his papers. Instead, he looks directly at Leo, then at the cameras, then back to Leo. Before you leave this courtroom, I want you to understand something. His voice has shifted again, no longer judicial, no longer confrontational. Something closer to a teacher addressing a student who just failed a test badly, but still has time to retake it. This hearing started with $570 in parking tickets. It became about something far more expensive, the cost of contempt, the price of inherited belief systems, and the debt children carry when adults teach them to measure human worth in dollars. He gestures to the closed file. I reduced your mother's fines to $40, but the real cost of today isn't measured in money. It's measured in what you'll do with the knowledge you now possess. Leo stands frozen, uncertain, whether he's being dismissed or required to stay. Caprio clarifies. You admitted error on record. That took courage, but admission without action is just performance. He pulls up the assignment requirements on the screen. You have 90 days to write a statement analyzing the difference between financial contribution and parental presence. That statement will be reviewed by me, shared with both your parents, and entered into your permanent record. He pauses. But here's what that assignment actually requires: honesty you haven't practiced yet. He leans forward. It's easy to admit you were wrong in a courtroom after a judge dismantled your arguments with bank statements. The hard part is going home, looking at your life, and choosing to see clearly when no one is forcing you to. Leo's face shows confusion. Caprio explains. Your father will call you tonight. He'll be angry about the confiscated phone, the custody review, the public exposure. He'll tell you I overreached. He'll reframe himself as the victim. And you'll have to decide whether to believe the comfortable story or the uncomfortable evidence. Caprio stands now, walks around the bench, approaches Leo and his mother. The informality breaks courtroom protocol, but no one objects. He stops 3 feet away, speaking at normal volume, the microphones barely catching his words. Leo, I've been a judge for 32 years. I've seen thousands of cases. Most of them I forget within a week. He pauses. But every so often a case comes through that isn't really about what's written on the citation. It's about a moment where someone has the opportunity to choose differently than they've been conditioned to choose. He gestures to the mother. Your mother could have fought your statement, could have demanded you apologize, could have broken down, could have blamed your father publicly. She did none of that. She stood silent and let the evidence speak. He shifts his attention back to Leo. That silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. She knew that defending herself would sound like excuses. So she let the numbers, the late payments, the bank records, the work schedules defend her instead. He taps the closed file. That's what integrity looks like when it's tested. Not loud, not defensive, just present and provable. Caprio's voice softens slightly. You're 11. You didn't create the belief system you walked in here with, but you're old enough to question it now. Old enough to notice when the story you've been told contradicts the evidence in front of you. He points to the assignment on the screen. That written statement isn't punishment, it's opportunity, a chance to demonstrate whether you can revise your understanding when facts contradict assumptions. He steps back, professional distance restored. Most people never get that chance. They carry childhood beliefs into adulthood unchallenged. They repeat patterns without examining them. They measure worth in dollars because someone taught them to, and no one ever forced them to question whether that metric was accurate. He looks directly at Leo. This hearing gave you something rare, documented proof that your assumptions were wrong, delivered at an age where you can still change course. What you do with that proof is entirely up to you. Caprio returns to the bench one final time. He addresses the courtroom, the cameras, the record. This case demonstrates why courtrooms exist beyond traffic enforcement. Yes, we process citations. Yes, we assign fines. But the law isn't just about punishing violations. It's about creating moments where people confront consequences they'd otherwise avoid. He gestures to Leo. This child said something cruel because cruelty was normalized in his environment. Left unchallenged, that cruelty becomes permanent. It calcifies into adult contempt, relationship destruction, generational dysfunction. He pulls up the final summary on screen. Leo Morrison will complete 40 hours of traffic education. He will submit a written analysis of parental responsibility versus financial contribution. He will appear before this court in 90 days to demonstrate compliance. The requirements scroll past. But the real education isn't in those assignments. It's in the choice he makes tomorrow morning when his father calls and rewrites today's events to restore the old narrative. Caprio's voice hardens with conviction. Money doesn't teach children to become decent human beings. It teaches them to acquire things. Responsibility teaches character. Accountability teaches integrity. Consequence teaches growth. He looks at the mother. Your son learned today that sacrifice without reward still has value, that labor without wealth still matters, that presence outweighs presence. He shifts to Leo. Whether he internalizes that lesson or rejects it when it becomes inconvenient, that's the test. And it happens not here under judicial supervision, but at home when no one is watching. He picks up the gavel, holds it suspended. This courtroom cannot force respect. It can only document its absence and create conditions where respect might develop if chosen. He looks at both mother and son. You both leave here with documented truth. What you build from that foundation is not my decision. It's yours. The gavel falls. Final. Absolute. The hearing ends, but the consequences, educational, relational, moral, are just beginning. The cameras capture Leo and his mother, walking out together, the gap between them, visible, the possibility of closing it uncertain, but the path forward at least illuminated by facts instead of fiction. Leo walked into that courtroom believing money measured worth until Judge Caprio forced him to examine who actually paid for his survival. The bank statements didn't lie. His father's $900 phone versus his mother's $985 monthly gap she covered alone. Here's your question. Who in your life sacrifices quietly while someone else takes credit loudly? Are you measuring their value by what's visible or what's real? This video is created for educational and inspirational purposes under fair use, not to defame or attack any individual. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. It means the world. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share so more voices can join this journey. Until next time, stay strong, stay awake, and I'll see you in the next video.